Hey guys, this is Schwee, and I decided to kind of do something a little different and kind of just tell stories about what has happened in my life. This could be a quick video, it could be a long video, I'm not too sure yet. But, I mean, hopefully you guys like it, and let's get into it. This story is more on the lines of when I was 21, actually. Not really 21, I would say like 19, 20, and 21. So I used to work at a shipyard as a security guard. And when you first get there, of course, you're unarmed, is what they call it. And you gotta kind of work your way up to the armed positions, and then after that, you can kind of go wherever you want. The only issue is, of course, me starting at around 20, I had to wait until I was 21. So, yeah, I kind of just sat there, did really nothing, just looking at bags the whole time, Navy people talking all the time. And finally, the day of me hitting 21 happens. And it's kind of funny because as soon as I managed to get to the age of 21, which, I mean, it's kind of weird anyway, my supervisor instantly put me in the, like, class that you have to take to be an armed security guard. But it kind of went further because I had to get, like, arrest authority. Um, and it was really odd, I would say, because I kind of just went along with it, not really thinking too much of it. And once that was done, I kind of got pushed into a nice building instead of sitting outside because, it was hot and it was terrible. But I got to be the armed security guard for basically the um, president of the shipyard, which was really cool in itself. But fast forward, and they kind of got rid of that position. So well, not sergeant, but my supervisor decided, oh, we're gonna put you as a lieutenant, and the structure for that goes absolutely nothing. Then sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and then you have your like account manager kind of person. And I basically skipped the whole sergeant thing and went straight to lieutenant. And I kind of kept saying no, but no one was really listening to me. And this was in main, I would say, reason being is because the captain at the time was actually someone who started after me, and I taught him how to do his job, which made things even more funny. Because he would come and tell me that I would have to do something, and I would tell him, "You're wrong. You have to do it this way," but not in a-hole way. I'm a really sarcastic person. So he kind of just went along with it, and he knew that I definitely did not want that position. So he would start, joking and all that stuff. And lo and behold, I go in the next day, and they give me my bars. Because lieutenants, we have the bars, and then your captains had two bars. Which kind of made things even more uncomfortable for me, because the highest I ever wanted to reach was sergeant. But fast forward, and the guy who was technically our manager, he ended up leaving and then coming back because another site fell, and we had this really cool person who, and obviously I'm not saying this to offend anyone or anything like that, but she was transgender. She was turning from male to female, and cool person, cool as could be. And that guy that I was told you about earlier, who came back, he was a complete a-hole. Like, there's no way around it. And of course, they kind of got into it. He said something that was very inappropriate, and all I hear on my radio is everyone come back to the main gate because there's a fight. Of course, I get there, and the female has this guy in the corner beating the mess out of him. And I understand, a lot of people are like, whoa, what did he say? I don't know. I wasn't there. All I can tell you is I came and he was crying in the corner, and this was a grown man. So it was kind of funny because he, I mean, honestly deserved it. You don't really talk about people like that. But, you know, um, we had to escort the person off the premises, and when we got back, all I hear is the guy yelling and saying, "Why didn't you spray him?" and all that stuff. And we just looked at him like, "What are you talking about? You just shouldn't have said anything. And of course, he ended up losing his job, so we had to get a new manager. Fast forward past all that, and the shipyard, I would say, is a, for lack of better words, dumpster fire. You have a 21-year-old lieutenant who has no idea what he's doing, aka me, and you have shipyard workers that will try and get over at any chance they get. And I'm not saying they're like institutionalized or anything, but some of the things these guys were doing were very questionable. There was a video that I had to watch of a guy who was painting the side of a ship. Yes, painting the side of a ship is normal and all, but when your face is covered in white powdery substance, that kind of changes things a little bit. So, yeah, that guy, he got fired and then got his job back literally the next week because apparently, as security, we couldn't really tell what it was, and he was kind of protected. Crazy work on that part. But, yeah, that was my time as lieutenant. Another time, and this was actually kind of before the whole lieutenant thing, we actually had to go, to the range. You have to go to the range every year to qualify to make sure you can still shoot somewhat straight. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the test that you have to do is so easy. Like, it's not even 5 feet away from you. It's more like 3. And even then, if you can't shoot it at 5, you gotta practice some more, I guess. But the reason why I say that is because I actually had a lady who worked with me. She was really cool. She ended up getting booted, I'm pretty sure, but that was way before I became a lieutenant of any kind. And it turned out that, so she was next to me, in the lane next to me while we were shooting, and the instructor was behind him. Mind you, the instructor, he used to work for the same corporation, so he kind of knew what he was looking at and looking for. And he basically said, fire, we, shoot 2, and then we stop. But the issue is, we shot 2, and then I looked next to me, and her gun is flailing basically towards my face. And it got really awkward for me because I stepped back real quick. Turns out that there was a hot brass that went in between her shirt, her chest area, I guess. And yeah, I understand it's hot, but I didn't want my face to get scalded by, 1,000 degrees of a bullet. So the instructor like grabbed her handgun really quick. And at the time, these guys, they all use Glocks. So yeah, no real safety mechanism if you know anything about that. But I'm still here, so it's whatever. It's cool. It was awkward, but I made it. But yeah, 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 yeah. So now fast forward back to when I was a lieutenant. You have to kind of walk around, check to make sure everyone's okay, no one's asleep or anything like that. And mind you guys, I obviously was not a lieutenant the whole time, so I know what people did, where they would hide, and things like that. And I was one of those people that I went to those hiding spots and I would find people, halfway asleep or sleep or whatever. And I would just tell them, hey, get up and go away. I'll cover you for a little bit. And then when you come back, kind of do your thing. So I gave them warnings at that kind of point. However, there was a time where me and the captain were both walking around. Mind you, yes, it's the same captain who I taught when he was like just beginning. And between you and me, he was a stickler for the rules. However, I kind of broke that a little bit because he was like, I'm going to write this person up. I'm going to write this person up. And I was like, dude, you probably shouldn't do that because we already have a hard time finding people to cover shifts. And if you constantly write people up just because they're a minute late from their break, they tend not to come back to help with other shifts. And it kind of helped because he started figuring it out. However, this particular day, me and him were walking to like the furthest place that you could go, and there was a person there. She was really cool. However, we kind of knew that she was a, for lack of better words, troublemaker, but not in the sense of, cussing people out, which she did a lot. It was more of a, we would find her asleep, and cars were sitting there waiting to go into the entrance. But I mean, if you're asleep, you can't really check the cars or let them through. So this day, me and the captain, we went all the way down there, and we found her obviously asleep. So not the best look for her. And when we got back, we had a little meeting, and push comes to shove, the new account manager person, myself and the captain, kind of all came to agreement that she was going to have to go. And obviously, go as in getting fired. Obviously, she didn't like the captain, and that would have ended up in a fight. So, guess who they decided to bring up and kind of fire this person? If you guessed me, you're absolutely right. And it wasn't in my best interest to fire them, but at the same time, I can only save people but so much, because I understand we're all human. So kind of pulled her into the office, shut the door. Obviously, she was like, "Oh, great, they sent you to give me my write up," and I said, "Not necessarily. It's more of a I got to give you the boot." And of course, she looked at me for a second. It kind of clicked on what I was saying, and to say she was pissed off is an understatement. However, she couldn't be really pissed off at me because she knows that I've covered her in the past. So it was more of a F everyone else, you're cool, here's my crap, and then walked away. The part that I forgot to mention is it was an armed post, so obviously she had a weapon, and yeah, that could have went 10 times worse. And in hindsight, yes, I know we should have taken her weapon, or at least waited for her to get off the clock. However, this is 21-year-old me, and these other guys were obviously much older than me. So, uh, in hindsight, yes, I know. It was wrong. However, I can't control that, and yeah. So the final story for this video, at least, is something very awkward, very uncomfortable to a lot of people, and I wouldn't blame you if you said WTF and then clicked off the video. But here we go anyway. So this happened right before I got my bars, and actually no, this happened after I got my bars. So I was already a lieutenant, and this was obviously some months into me being a lieutenant. Kind of got everything down packed, already fired the person, and I was kind of moving and grooving. Whenever I would need people to cover something, I would call them. If they heard my voice, for some reason they would always go, "Oh yeah, I'll come and help." So that was actually pretty nice for me. However, things kind of took a turn, and it was more of the shipyard aspect, not really in the security, because security obviously had so many issues in itself. But for me, I had to go through, look at videos and stuff like that. And I had a buddy who worked there. He was actually one of the like supervisors that oversaw like the naval ships and getting repaired. So me and him, we were pretty cool. We were pretty tight before I ended up, well, before I was a lieutenant. So afterwards, it kind of just stuck. The thing is, he kind of found me when I was making my rounds, and he was like, "Hey man, let me show you something." So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He always shows me random things. He plays a lot of like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. So I thought it was going to be something like that. Nope, horribly wrong. Absolutely wrong. Should have thought otherwise from the start. So what ended up happening was I sat there. We walked into the old building that I used to work in. However, I didn't work in there anymore because, yeah, people hated me. But, so ended up going in there, and he pulled out his phone. I was like, all right, here we go, Final Fantasy. Nope, I was absolutely wrong. It was a video of one of the sailors, and I'm gonna let you guys put it together. There was a dog involved and peanut butter, and the sailor was a female. Yes, I know, disturbing on so many levels. So the reason I brought that up was because he said that it was airdropped to him, and if you guys know anything about naval vessels, especially aircraft carriers, helicopter carriers, things like that, you know that those are floating cities. That was in our shipyard. So yeah, not just me, not just him, take a few thousand people, and yeah, that's who saw that video. And the more nerve-wracking part about it was that same individual that was in the video actually walked through the gate as me and my buddy walked out of the door. So if you can imagine it, there's the giant building. We walk outside, and there's our main gate. The sailor walked out that gate, and I knew it was her because she first kind of stared at us, walked out like she was very uncomfortable, turned around to stare at us, and then kept walking. So, yeah, I don't know what happened to her. Never saw her again. Probably for the best. Good luck if you got MJP'd or anything like that. I don't know how the Navy does it. But, yeah, it was, for lack of a better term, awkward and disturbing. So, I'm going to be honest with you guys. That's all the stories I have that are any kind of interesting besides, random medical emergencies or the main gate latch deciding not to work when we have someone have a heart attack. It was just a mess all the way around. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. That's it for me, especially in this story. If you guys liked it, cool. If not, I understand. It's not for everyone. I do have plenty other stories because that was only when I was 21. By the time I was 22, I ended up joining a sheriff's department on accident, which is a whole different story altogether. And on top of that, my military experience. If you guys want to hear that stuff, please definitely let me know. If not, I understand. It's not for everyone. But that's it for me. I hope you guys have a good one. Bye.